aficionado might say, "Oh, that
Ah,
that fight isn't what I want," but I think it's good. I think you'll think it's good, but
oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've
we'll
heard
give it a shot.
really good things about it. Like it's a show aimed at
Yeah,
kids, but written well.
yeah.
So
I mean, it
I'm super
is.
excited
Yeah,
to check
it's
it out. I've
definitely.
not yet, but
I'll say this: if you were a teenager, you're probably going to identify it. If you still remember what it was like and
mm,
dealing with family and dealing with, I know you have a sister, so I mean, you probably will be like, "Oh man, is that what my sister went through? That sucks."
yeah, yeah, no, no, for sure. My sister watches it, and my two nieces watch it, and
Yes,
now even my mom wants to watch it because there's a Pakistani family in there. So it's kind of
yeah,
cool to see that, you know, even
yeah.
old
I mean,
Pakistani
I
moms
enjoy it. I
are
really love it,
watching Marvel
and
shows.
okay, so give it a watch. Like I said,
Yeah,
give it at least until episode 3, because the
gotcha.
first 2 are slow because they're building, and it's a lot of character arc. There is good, fun action in one, but one is a lot more like fantasy action, where it's sort of like the dream sequence of what's the action to come.
Mm,
Um, 2 is your training montage. 3 is when we finally get the action at the end, and then
interesting.
4 is just all action.
Huh.
So
That
anyway,
sounds
that's my
fun.
opinion. We'll talk about it. Let's do. And speaking of all action, speaking of just incredible episodes, I love this. I loved Obi-Wan episode 6. We're going to talk about that. Let's do the intro. In a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there is one monster greater than them all. He is Darth Vader, and this is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan is drawn into a confrontation with Vader as Luke's fate hangs in the balance. Our director, of course, is Deborah Chow. Joby Harold gets our teleplay by, along with Andrew Stanton. And Hussein Amini. Story by goes to Stuart Battle, Joby Harold, and Andrew Stanton. And least working man in show business, the man who started it all and now gets to enjoy retirement, George MFN Lucas. Oh my goodness, this is, and here's the thing. It's like this movie, this episode, at least for the Obi-Wan story, is telegraphed a mile away.
Mm,
Because the minute it starts, oh, okay, so Obi-Wan has to do the thing. And we all know Obi-Wan has to do the thing. And everyone's like, don't do the thing, Obi-Wan. And, well, it's a solid argument. No one is really, I mean, except for Leia, no one's really like, no, don't go, don't do it. Everyone's like, we don't need you to. We're fighting for you as well, and all this kind of stuff. It's like,
yeah.
nah, I gotta do. Although I gotta say, like, and this is just a thing. Like, I really feel they have like TARDIS technology in Star Wars, because that ship that dropped out of the ship had to be at least half the size of the ship. You know, it just, and there's a part of me, because that was also a ship that could go to hyperdrive. I was like, couldn't they just take the hyperdrive out of that ship and drop it in? Or maybe they should have thought of that before that, because that was like a really good working ship. But like, no one thought beforehand, oh, maybe we should make sure that the ship we're gonna all get out on, it's all up to snuff. I know we're in a rush, but it's like, if we have a working hyperdrive in the escape ship, maybe put that in the main ship so we don't have to escape.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but as it stands, it's a solid start. It's a solid start with, of
To
course,
a
to
solid
to
start
to,
to
to
the
Obi-Wan's
episode,
story.
or oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid. I mean, no, the start of the episode's actually a little slow, because it's like, we all know where it's going, but they have to walk to it. You know, they have to go. Okay, so we can't go to hyperdrive yet. We're working on it. We're going to have it going in 2 minutes, And it's one of these things. It's sort of like when they said, we're going to fix the doors so we can all leave. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, we're working on it. Guys being way too optimistic for the whole story. It's just like, nah, just go.
Yeah.
But this parallels with Reva's story. What did you think of Reva's story? Because I know that this is controversial on a lot of levels, both in how it starts and how it ends. What
Well,
did you
okay.
think?
First of all, do people know that lightsabers don't kill people? Is that like a known thing in the galaxy that lightsabers instantly cauterize your wound and you're fine to go? Or do you just have a hole in your liver now, but that's okay somehow?
Yeah. Well, it was
Like
on the other side. It wasn't on her liver side. It
the
was
kidney or whatever, or
yeah.
a
Well, you got 2
spleen,
of
or I don't
those.
know.
Yeah.
Like, but it's just really insane, and it bothers me, and it bothers me to a level that it makes me really hard to enjoy her character. When all of a sudden she gets stabbed and like nothing happened, like next Tuesday she's out like, I got a little touch of the old tennis elbow, and that's about as
Well, okay. So to be fair, and you have to always be fair in these. First off, leaving her alive was intentional. That was part of it. Was like, look, you're branded. You're not going to find a home in the Empire. You're sure as heck not going to find a home among the rebellion. You're
How often
branded.
sworn enemies leave each other alive in this universe really boggles my mind.
Well, it's. I guess. I mean, that's where the sword and sorcery angle comes into it. It's like it is people who are they're all, even if you are a Sith, you're still bound by some kind of code. And
You
part of
kill
the Sith
thousands of people every day without a thought.
yes. But if your goal is to cause the most suffering, sometimes leaving them alive does just that. You see, that's the
No,
idea.
no, but how do they not learn ever? Like leaving them alive is like maybe a delicious thought to think that they'll be suffering, but inevitably, in every case, it comes back to bite you in the butt real hard.
Yeah, and to be fair, so I guess it's like you can do this like very convoluted thing here where you can say from Vader's perspective he couldn't kill her because killing her would have shown he was weaker, because what she wants is to be killed. She either wants to die fighting him or to kill him, but saying you failed and you are not a threat to me anymore.
Yeah, but that's
Is
the kind of hubris that's hard to swallow. Like,
well, yeah,
how can you sit there and go, "You're not a threat to me," and then immediately she goes on, and I don't know.
yeah. Well, no, I mean, obviously, I mean, there's 2 aspects. One is so the story can happen. It's like if they kill Reva, then the entire second half of this episode doesn't happen.
Yeah, but well,
What
then find
happens
some more
is that
creative way of him almost getting her, but don't make the decision be that he chose to let her live.
well, and again, I think that was the only option that the only option that lets her live, because that's the thing, she's not going to run away from Vader, not at that point. You have a full rage mad Vader. You've got the Inquisitor back. If they want her dead, there's no reasonable way to let her live to continue another aspect of the story and not having it be expressly an act of humiliation. That she is still the scared youngling, that she had no power, she never had power, that this was Vader's goal the whole time. He let her live then, he's letting her live now, just because he just wants her to know until she can harness her hate, she can never truly achieve what she wants. And I mean, when you think, I
Okay.
guess from the Sith point of view, it's a long game.
Yeah.
That it's about getting people to turn to the dark side because they've suffered so much. Even if you're the cause of that suffering, it's like, yeah, I know,
Right. You
because
can kill
that's
them,
what
but
you
you don't
needed.
get to be right.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is he defeats her. I mean, utterly utterly owns her in the battle. Where, I mean, literally, he's not even using his lightsaber.
Right.
It's like, okay, give me your lightsaber. We're gonna break it in half. Here's half. You want to fight me? Come on, you know. And and this is where and this is, and so here is the reason he leaves her alive. She could have been calm. She could have slowly walked up to him and just 1 foot from behind his back turned on her lightsaber and just run right through him and do a
It wouldn't
quick
have killed him
bow to
anyways.
Well, I mean, it might have. If it had been a true bowel to jowl slash, it might have.
I don't
It
know.
might
I'm
have.
beginning to doubt where lightsabers can actually hurt people.
Yeah, I mean, given that Darth Maul survived a lightsaber attack, granted, well, you know what it is? It's like you either die right away in Star Wars, or you don't. And at this point in the Star Wars universe, they can replace literally any part of your body.
Yeah.
When Fennec Shan gets shot in the gut, even blasters don't kill you. Fennec Shan gets shot in the gut, and everyone thinks she's dead. And then Boba Fett's, I'll take her down to the local scrapper yard, and they'll fix her right up. Because they can do that. That's how far droid technology has gone. They just need to connect the pieces, and you're fine. Barely inconvenience. Super easy, barely any inconvenience. And for what it's worth, perhaps to that extent, that's sort of the idea, that they could have more harshly defeated her. But maybe again, much like they cut and although they don't know this yet, I don't think, they cut Darth Maul in half, and then he goes on to be one of the most powerful crime lords in the galaxy.
Wow.
And the idea is, what, I'm going to leave you sort of hurt, because as the Grand Inquisitor says, who also didn't die, which again, from that first thing, it's like, the need for revenge is a great motivator, isn't it? And it is this idea that, we don't want to kill him. We don't want to kill her. We want her to understand. We want her to understand where the path of the Sith leads. It's like if you ever watch was I think it's Batman. It's either Batman Forever or Batman. It's Batman Forever. When the Riddler says to Two-Face about killing Batman, it says, if we kill him now, he won't learn nothing. And that's the point. They want Reva to learn. They want her to learn what the path of the dark side is. And for what it's worth, she follows that path. That they know that whatever she chooses next, it is going to be powered by hate. And hate is the path of darkness. So whatever trick she has to go through, it's going to get her right back to the side of the Sith.
That's another thing I didn't understand the motivations of. I thought you had forsaken your allegiance to the Empire, and that you were trying to kill Darth Vader, and now all of a sudden Darth Vader doesn't want anything to do with you. You have no strategic or tactical value to Darth Vader, and you're going to go out and kill this kid that you don't even know what what was her motivation for killing the kid?
She knows that that's one of Anakin's kids. She knows that's Anakin's kid, and that was the point. And so what she wants to do is she wants to then come back to Vader and say, here was your son. The younglings you killed, I have now killed your youngling. And your little princess.
And does she really think that he wouldn't say, hey, thank you for saving me the trouble?
Well, so you can look at it in the grander scheme. When Vader realizes Luke is his son, all he can think about is bringing his son into the family business. He actually wants his son to be by his side. And he wants to really form a new Sith, not under the Emperor, but under the Skywalker brand, and say, it will not be the rule of two. It will not be me killing you or you killing me. It will be us together ruling, and then you will rule, and then your children rule, and our dynasty will go on. We will be the Empire. Which is, of course, why why Palpatine lied to Anakin to start with. Why he says your children are dead and your spouse, because he knew that's the one thing that he could not overcome. That was something that if Vader knew, he would have no allegiance from Vader. And we see this at the end of this episode, even when when Vader is ready to search out Obi-Wan across the galaxy, the Emperor realizes, this is bad for me, because his attachments to who he was are still too strong. And the more he wants to be Anakin, even for hate and fear and anger, it's just going to undermine what I need him for, what I need my apprentice for. And that is, and that, to me, that is the philosophy underpinning it.
I also kind of like that they made almost, you think that like Darth Vader was another personality. That he is the one that expressed himself, and he's the one that killed Anakin, and that sort of thing. So that in that moment, he's finally killing Anakin.
Yeah, that is and to me, this is an interesting aspect of this, because I actually think they really found a way to square the circle about episode. It was originally the first one, but is now episode 4. When he tells him the story of Darth Vader was a Jedi pupil, betrayed the Jedi, did all this, yada, yada, yada. Him telling him that, it was, well, why did he lie to him? And my actual thought on why he lied to him is because, you know what? He has allowed Luke to be just a person, to live a life and do whatever he needs to do. And quite frankly, I don't think he thought this was going to be the galaxy spanning adventure that it wound up being. I think really it's like, okay, we got to go get Leia out. I'm assuming Leia isn't. I'm assuming we're not going to run into Darth Vader. He's got a lot of important business Vader stuff to do. We're most likely not going to meet him. So I don't think I need to really weigh him down, especially because we have to save Princess Leia regardless. And I don't need to weigh him down with the entire first trilogy and the Clone Wars and everything else that happened. It's like, kid, a lot happened, and Darth Vader and your father, yeah, it's a bad mess. Okay, kid. So let me just say, Darth Vader killed your father, and we're just going to leave it at that. And maybe after it's all said and done, if I get to the end of this adventure, I can actually tell you the whole story. But as it turns out, he did not get to the end of the adventure because of contractual obligations. Alec Guinness literally said, I'll do it, but I have to be dead in this film. And then it got to be a huge hit. And they said, well, maybe I can come back for a couple of scenes. And thus Force Ghosts were born. What do you think of the Force Ghost at the end of this?
I thought it was kind of cool that he needed to find his connection to the Force again in order to be able to see him. He's like, where the hell have you been? He's like, man, I've been here this whole time. You just didn't know how to listen. You didn't know how to pay attention. I've been talking to you, trying to give you advice this whole time. Like, Obi-Wan, you're like, where are you?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things I love about this is it is this idea like, no, Force Ghosts here all the time, dude.
Yeah.
We're in the Force. The Force is all around us.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, just most people can't open their eyes to see. They don't understand. They don't understand that because of the Force, we can live forever, and we do live forever. That we just do, you know. It's like, oh, the Force is forever. Oh, so are we. Oh, and it really makes everything that Palpatine is trying to do ridiculous. It's like it's not going to do you any good, because at most all you're doing is shutting yourself off. And there's even an interesting argument that's just how much of Palpatine is even Palpatine, and how much is just the first Sith Lord who learned to transfer his essence to his apprentice. And that the Sith Master is just like the Trill symbiote. It just passes on, and the new person maybe has the name and the place and thinks they're in control, but really it's always the Trill. This is a Star Trek reference. So
interesting. Do you think that's
Jadzia
what
does.
Palpatine is that what Palpatine was planning with Darth Vader, to eventually transfer his consciousness into him?
I think so, because that's part of the rule of two. And it's actually the guy who created the rule of two, and I think it's Darth Bane. He's like the guy who creates the rule of two, says there can only be one master and one apprentice. And then when at the end of the saga, when he says, I am all the Sith, what he is saying is, all of the Sith have been me. I have passed through each Sith master because we are one collective living forever in these bodies.
So is that what could have been speaking to Obi-Wan in that moment when he tells him, I'm the one who killed Anakin? It's this ever-present force that's speaking. Oh, interesting. I thought maybe it was just like a separate personality.
Well, I think it is, because at this point, Anakin hasn't taken a final step, but it is possible that the Emperor's influence is feeding into him in this. You know, that's the idea. It's just the idea that all of these Sith throughout history are riders within the entire dark side of the Force.
Right. So even Palpatine is not really himself.
Yeah, that's the idea, is that the Emperor Palpatine, that there was once a Senator Palpatine who was someone else's apprentice. And that Emperor Palpatine and that Senator Palpatine, when it came time for him to take his master's place and find his own apprentice in Darth Maul, he actually lost something of who he was, as his master then entered his body and became his controller. At least that's a fan theory that's not confirmed by Lucasfilm or Disney, but it is an interesting thing, and it is what Palpatine effectively says to Rey when he says, when you strike me down in your hate, I will enter you. Which is like, why are you monologuing? Why are you telling the master plan? Oh, there's a part of me that says that was actually Palpatine's master plan. He wanted out. And he's telling her, if you do this, this is what will happen. Expressly because he doesn't want to pass on. He wants to end it. Because it has been. Yeah, you know, it's you know, there's all these levels on things, you know, that you can read into it, and that's what's great about Star Wars, is there's so much more fan theory that you can inject into it that has nothing to do with what anyone wrote when they wrote it down, but it's what we as fans have said. Oh, you know what would be interesting? What if this is what they meant when they said this? And I'm inclined to agree, you know?
I like that theory. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I like it too, Mozz. But yeah, you know, I think that first off, you know, I like Owen and Rue, or Rowan and Baru, really holding up against her, you know, and just, you know, doing their little, you know, and there's part of me that's thinking, oh,
let's not. They didn't hold up. They held up for like 5 seconds, and then Reva had her prey.
Well, yeah. Although, no, but what I was going to say is, I kind of feel like there have been like people who've made the statement that there is like when you first go to their hovel, there's like blaster marks on it even before the stormtroopers come. I kind of feel like this was like their way to say, yeah, that's why there was blasters, because, you know, of course he has blasters and he's had to shoot at people from time to time.
Yeah.
It's the first laser battle that happened at at the moisture farm? No, this is just one of many. Yeah, well, what I like is that they fight for Luke.
Yeah.
And I like when Owen says, he is my own. That don't you at all soft sell what I'm doing here. You're coming into my house to take my family, and I will not allow it. And I appreciate that. Now the controversy of this story is that, like, should Reva have been hit by her own connection to the other younglings, even seeing herself in the place of Anakin, or in the place, both as herself being in the place of Anakin and then herself in the place of Luke. Now, within the entire argument, there is this idea that you can say that was what was important. That in order for her to make that next step, she had to choose to be Anakin. Say, will you kill the younglings? Will you separate yourself and say, no, the youngling must die because that is what the hate demands?
I think it's also like an interesting question of identity. Like, she had been for so long pretending to be of the dark side, and she had to keep like some little piece of herself to be protected from this persona that she'd created, so she didn't fool herself into thinking that she was that person. And she always had to have like something to say, I'm not really that person, I'm just pretending. It's all towards a goal.
Well,
My whole goal is to get revenge, yada yada.
You see,
but in
that's
this
the
moment,
thing.
that's it, right? In this moment, this was the last step before she actually jumped in and could not tell herself that she was just pretending anymore. So in that moment, she's like, if I do this, I'm no longer pretending. There's no justification anymore. I can't, that's where I have to make the decision that I'm not really that person.
And that's why Darth Vader left her alive, because he knew if she was so close, and she wanted to, because that was her whole motivation. Her motivation was hate and anger and revenge and attachment. She could have been a perfect Sith.
Yeah.
But she felt empathy. And Sith cannot feel empathy. They cannot care for who they kill. They cannot care about what must be done for the furtherance of their cause. And that is what she could not do, because she could see this kid didn't ask for this. In the same way, the younglings really didn't ask to be Jedi. Someone came to their house and said, your child could be a Jedi. And I think, it's sort of like so many child prodigies out there, where some person comes to this kid's house because they can play the piano. And they say, I can make sure your son can play the piano better than anyone else in the world. Just give them to us. Just, let us, occupy their time this much, and then they will be the world's greatest pianist. And maybe so, but is that something the child can even want to choose? And that is the thing, is the Jedi younglings never had a real opportunity to choose to be Jedi. Now, one imagines that on the path to the Jedi, there were 1,000 places where you can ask to get off. But like any cult, you don't want to get off, because obviously there are advantages to being a Jedi. And that, of course, is why the Jedi sowed their own corruption. Because that is why Anakin, as the prophesied one, did in fact end the imbalance in the Force by ending the Jedi and ending the Sith. And that is the whole purpose of the Star Wars saga. You got to get to that point where you just say, you know what? All these old rules are bunk. We can't live by these rules. We have to find a better way. We have to, as Sam Wilson, Captain America, says, do better. And you can say that's an oversimplification. It's like, yeah, it's oversimplified, because you know what? It needs to be simple. You just have to do better. And And that is what it comes down to. I'm glad that Reva didn't kill Luke. I hope we see Reva again. My real hope is that we're gonna get I keep on blanking on his name, but the guy from that we get the guy from Eternals and Reva sort of teaming up. Haja and Reva just doing buddy cop comedy, just jailing around the universe. She's a disgraced Sith. He's a fake Jedi.
I want
wacky
more
adventures do they come up with next?
I want more baby Leia.
I think I would love to. Yeah.
Far more interesting than Baby Yoda.
Yes. Well, she is really fun and exciting.
For how tiny of a child she's a really, really good actress.
She's
really,
amazing.
Really good.
And I am of two minds with that, which is like part of me was like, yes, let's see what else she can do. But it's sort of the Millie Bobby Brown problem, which is like, you know what, maybe the kid needs to be a kid too. And it's really, in its own way, the Luke Skywalker problem. It's like, maybe they need to be a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe, as much as we want to see them having.
I guess the other side of that coin is not all kids are born with that talent, not with that aptitude, or not with that set of curiosity that begs them to these positions, and not only begs them to be in these positions, but to be successful and effective in these situations. So, I mean, don't they owe it to the world or to themselves to see if they're special?
And that is how you get younglings at the Jedi Temple, and that's the thing. It's like, it's like you owe it to the Jedi. You owe it to the Force to come and be a Jedi.
Not just us, but to the natural order of things. You owe it to the universe.
Exactly.
The universe is trying to sing through you, and you're keeping the universe's mouth closed. Let the universe sing.
And you know what? But I guess if there's an argument to be made, is that at some point, Leo will be of a point in her life. The actress will be at a point in her life where she can be every actress that has ever been. She can be as great of an actress as she wants to be. We don't need to see her. We saw her at 10. We don't need to see her at 12. Let her have a year off. Let her have some fun. Let her go to some conventions and have some fun, getting because and for what it's worth, I don't want her constantly traumatized by perverts, because that is the worst aspect of this entire story. It's like the more you push these really talented kids out there, the more you're just asking for trouble. I would really like, if we do another thing, I would really like to see them do something with the Luke character, so that we can get that kid's chance to shine.
I mean, I hope they get as good an actor.
Yeah, well, we got an actor in there. I hope he's good. We don't know because we haven't seen him do much yet.
Right.
But I have to assume they cast an actor as good as the actor they cast for Leia, because they know, you're not going to do much this season, but we're probably going to bring you back.
I mean, probably
because
you're playing Luke.
Yeah. But that, and for what it's worth, I mean, that was always the problems that they hit with the first round, is I feel like with the prequels, I felt like they pushed too much too quick and really, put too much weight on kids to be the star, when it's really shouldn't be little Anakin's time to shine. It should be, freaking Obi-Wan's time to shine, because really it's as much Obi-Wan's story as anyone else's, especially that first trilogy. It's Obi-Wan's story that we're following. Anakin kind of should always be a secondary character in that story, but I guess they wanted to get to that. Everyone loves Darth Vader.
Yeah, I mean, like, how do you?
That's like Vader story.
To me, that seems like making a Halo game where the Master Chief is not the main character.
Well, but the thing is, if you're going to make a point, it's like, was Vader ever the main character? He's the boss battle, and really, he's actually the underboss battle. He's just someone who's off there in the distance. He's Bowser. He's not whoever you fight after you finally defeat Bowser. Because there is that next person you fight in another game, after you and Bowser are friends now,
Right.
And
Right.
that's the thing, is like the villains are always so much more off panel in Star Wars, because really the real villain of Star Wars is societal decay and the Empire growing out of complacency amongst the electorate.
Is it that, or is it just, I mean, like the real villain is human nature itself?
Well, yeah, I mean, really, arguably, yes. I mean, both, yes, and both.
Uh,
Little from column A and a little from column B. That's what it comes down to. Uh,
we
I
all
don't
we all
know.
think we're so novel and new, playing out the same stories humanity always has, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what humanity does. Is look, there's what is the old statement? There's like four stories. Man versus himself, man versus nature,
Mm.
man versus society, and man versus Godzilla. I mean, it's it's just
Fair enough.
it's just the idea that, what, no matter how complex of a story you want to write, you know you always come back to your basics. Is it a love triangle? Is it opposites attract? Is it
I think I think what it
you know
says to me about human nature is that there will not be any end to any of it. There is no finality, there is no resting place. It's always going to be a battle this way or a battle that way.
well,
And we're
exactly.
always going to be fighting. But then the inherent paradox there is that, if you weren't fighting, there wouldn't be any fight. But we're always going to be fighting.
Yeah, but that's what Q said. It never ends, John
Right.
Luke. It never ends. It's because it's not gonna end. It's like, no matter
Right.
what you accomplish, no matter what you build, you are still always just Ozymandias.
Right. So, but
No
why
matter
should
what you
we
build.
even bother? Why are we even bothering? Like,
Well, because it's a distraction. Because it's fun.
because it's a
It's fun to
distraction.
build things. You
Right.
know.
So no, but I mean, like, we should take that to heart and realize that all the games we're playing with politics and any of it is all just a farce. It's all just a game.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
let's just chill out and have a good time.
Yeah, well, exactly. If the world was better, we would each would produce to their ability and each take to their need.
No, no, but I think the point I'm beginning to think about is whether or not it'll ever be better. It's always just going to be.
Well,
And you're always
exactly.
going to be fighting. There is no better. There is no other side of the fence. There's
Well,
only
I
what
mean,
is now.
I guess what one can say is it can be better because make we can make institutionalized horribleness.
Yeah.
I mean, no
Yeah, but
longer the
it's all temporary, right? I mean,
Oh,
like
that is true. Yeah.
eventually it's going to, like, so, like, just you write it out and write it out.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, one day there will be the benevolent philosopher king who lives forever, who controls all things and makes everything right forever.
No, no.
Someday
See,
there will
that's
be
the
a superman.
fallacy that people
Yeah,
get lost in and do silly things for. What you got to
yeah,
realize is that you're always going to be trying to catch the sweet spot between swings, right? There'll be a
yeah,
good idea, and then people will be people and will co-opt that idea into horrible, evil things. And then
yep,
it'll swing the other way. And then right in the middle, before it gets bad again, things will be really good. But then human nature will take over and it's going to get bad again. So all we can ever
yeah.
do is like hope for those pockets in between swings where it'll be good, like springtime of human development will
Well,
eventually lead to autumn and slushy snow and black ice.
yeah. What one can say is every glorious past was filled with horrors,
Oh,
and every glorious future will have new and different horrors
yeah,
that we will have to deal with.
right.
And that, I think, is maybe even one of the most interesting. There was, I can't remember what he said, but there was this thing that, back in the 1830s, or the 1860s. Sure, many people knew slavery was bad, but there were a lot of people who didn't necessarily observe that slavery was bad. That there were bad people who owned slaves, but just owning a slave in and of itself wasn't a bad thing.
Hmm.
But it is so abhorrent to us today. It's like, there are probably lots of things that we as humans right now think are perfectly acceptable that our ancestors will think, oh, that's abhorrent,
And that should give us a bit of humility in how we judge people from the past. But
exactly.
somehow it doesn't. We expect
Well,
people of the past to operate under the same moral guidelines that are built around infrastructures that didn't exist back then. So, like, the
well,
bare resources that they had to make up their moral infrastructure didn't rely on the same resources that we have. So to
I know.
expect, and that's
Well, I guess and this is the convoluted aspect, which is, should they be honored in architecture? All men who do good things and all women who do good things should be honored in books.
Yeah,
men and women
that's
both
lacking.
do.
You're lacking in humility to say that it's possible that you could be doing the same thing and that you should afford anybody else the leniency that you expect future generations to give you.
Well, then maybe we should just say no more statues. And maybe
That's going a bit far, but I
I
think
don't know. There's lots of
nuanced
cultures
conversations are possible.
who actually say, you know what, maybe we don't need a statue. Or maybe we need statues of people who, whatever evil they did, it wasn't on a global scale. Maybe you need a statue to Stan Lee.
Yeah, no, but
Thomas
but
Jefferson.
again, human nature is such that the minute you find any stasis with that people are going to love to find something wrong. Oh, the scale is further now.
Yeah.
Those people aren't allowed. How about we to take people who only did like continental genocide? No, blah blah blah.
And to be fair, maybe that's a good thing that we were always like re-looking at our past, saying, you know what, that actually is kind of effed up.
Either that, or we're trying to find stuff to be upset about instead of going about living our lives and having some fun and smiles.
You know why? Because at the end of the day, we're all Riva.
We're all what?
Riva.
Uh-huh.
Riva. And somebody's best friend was killed by that asshole. Somebody.
Yeah, but I think we all fail to realize that we can also be Riva in that moment about to kill a child, right?
Exactly.
So we should all have the humility to say
that. We should all say, Anakin, he made a lot of mistakes, but he redeemed himself at the end with Luke. He threw the Emperor into the thing when it was his family who was threatened. And maybe we shouldn't build statues to Darth Vader. So that's the question. That because Darth Vader did good at the end,
or even Anakin Skywalker, he didn't do any good at the end.
He killed the Emperor. Well, sort of. He thought he killed the Emperor.
It's like creating a Frankenstein monster that kills almost everybody in the town, but there's like 2 people left, and you're like, all right, fine. What a good guy I am,
Well, but that's the thing. I mean, when you start to break it down, like, who among our founding fathers?
No. But you can't use the most extreme example of something and say that applies to regular everyday.
I'm gonna say it. Thomas Jefferson did a lot of bad stuff. Okay, I'm gonna go on record with that.
But that was par for the course. That was par for the course back then. Same way we look at the way Thomas Jefferson.
Actually, no. I'm not gonna say it was par for the course. Because maybe you could own 1 or 2 slaves who were super family slaves that you just like, no, man, where would they go? We weren't taking care of them. We didn't have the system. When you are running a plantation that is based off of human misery.
Right, but wasn't that par for the course back then?
Well, no, not everybody, just people who ran plantations.
Right,
so
but everybody who had money ran plantations.
No, there were other people who did other jobs and actually made money on it too. There were people that were. So, for example, gunpowder manufacturers.
Well, say for example, like some people feel the same way about factory farming and whatnot, future generations will be like, yo, back in the day, these people used to buy meat and then they were like, cows were kept in these things. Well, how horrible is that? Most of them knew that it was wrong, but they did it anyways. And now, any good thing that somebody in our society does that's ever eaten a hamburger, all of a sudden they're going to get looked at like, oh, they were like the scum of the earth. Right, so that possibility
won't be the scum
exists.
of the earth, and this is what it comes down to. At a certain point, there were abolitionists who wore cotton. And does the fact that they wore cotton make them less of an abolitionist? That is where it comes into that idea of it was the world in which you live.
Right.
Cotton, it's breathable fabric. Goodness, we all need to wear cotton more. But the fact of the matter is, abolitionists knew dang well where that cotton came from.
My point is this: like, we're sitting here saying that we are so much better than Thomas Jefferson or blah blah blah, but your phone was
Well,
made
I'm
by
not.
children's hands, right? All
Yeah,
these
I'm
people
not.
that are saying that they're saying, somebody who did so many great things should be looked down upon because he did these bad things, right? Your cell phone was made by
Well, and I guess the
tiny hands of
argument
slave
is,
children,
I
right?
guess
The
the
sneakers were
argument
made by the
is,
same thing, but like we are
well,
all
okay, but the
complicit in all
argument
the evil that
is
we love to call out in other people.
not that we shouldn't respect the great words of Thomas Jefferson, but that we should understand the failures of Thomas Jefferson
Right,
as
right,
much
no,
as
no.
we
So let
understand his
that be a
greatness. Well,
nuanced
no, no,
statement.
no, no,
Don't
no,
say
but
Thomas
that's the thing.
Jefferson,
See,
yada yada. He owned
that's where
slaves. You know,
that's where the breakdown happens, because that's where the breakdown happens. Because there's a lot of people who are more than happy to say Thomas Edison or Thomas Jefferson. Well, Thomas Edison too. Thomas Jefferson was a flawed man who did great things, and he could have done way lousier things and been normal in his time, but he actually made a few efforts to be a better person and to make
right.
a country
And
that would be better.
society is benefiting tremendously because of his work.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
find
certainly.
anybody from that era that was doing more good or better, cooler, interesting things than he
Oh no,
was.
there were lots of people, but that's okay. Um, I mean, to put it to you simply,
And if
Frederick
you
Douglass
pulled
did better
apart their
than
lives,
Thomas Jefferson. Okay, I mean that's the thing. It's like when you put it up there, you're gonna say, oh well, and for what it's worth, people will want to tear down Gandhi too. And yeah, you know what, Gandhi and Mother Teresa, they all did things that were kind of bad, and that's okay. And we can acknowledge that, even as we acknowledge that they did some good stuff too. The question becomes when we start honoring them at a level that ignores their crimes.
yeah, I understand. But taking
So,
down
for example, R.
statues,
Kelly. R. Kelly just went to jail for
yeah,
30 years
good
for
for
doing
him.
a lot of bad stuff that he should not
Mhm.
ought to have done. Now, does that mean we can never listen to R. Kelly, or does it mean now we can, because now he's being punished, and now
Yeah,
we can all sit
to me, yeah, to me, it's easy to make that separation because for me,
yeah.
where it's personal for me is Bill Cosby, abhorrent, a horrible human being, but you're not going to take away Dr. Huxtable from me.
Well, exactly, and I think this is and for what it's worth, not Spawn, but this is what uh, W. Kamau is. I forget what his letter
W.
after
Kamau
W is.
Bell.
Yeah, I know what it is. I think there's an extra letter in there. Is it W.R. Kamau or Bell, or I don't know. Mr. Bell, Mr. Bell has this thing, but we have to talk about Cosby. And what he's saying is, we have to talk about Cosby. We have to talk about what happened and understand in the whole context who these people were. And that's the thing. When you start erecting statues to people, there's not really meant to be a lot of conversation about it, because there's not a secondary statue to make you say, oh, okay, that's a much more complex story, because it is a complex story. And that's the idea, is that stories are complex and history is complex. And rather than building a statue, maybe we ought to just talk about the history,
Yeah,
and
but
maybe
then, but
just
then, but then we would
pay a
never
scholar to
celebrate
sit
anything.
there
Then
and
the people who just like being miserable would win.
no, because there's lots of things to celebrate.
I
There's
guarantee you, the miserable people can find something wrong with
oh, of
everything to
course, but
celebrate.
they're miserable people. Who
That's what
cares?
I'm saying. We should
But this is the thing.
understand that the miserable people just want to be miserable and don't give them all the power
I
to
know.
ruin all the fun.
Well, we don't give them all the power to ruin all the fun,
Oof.
but it is important to remember that they are there for a purpose. So, okay, one of my favorite TV shows as a kid was something called Insight.
Hmm.
And this was a super progressive Vatican II Catholic television show.
Whoa, that was a whole bunch of words that don't belong together.
Oh yeah, no, but it was, man. You don't even know, man. It used to be a weird, crazy hippie time when I was a kid, man. You don't even know how close we were to just that crazy libertarian, paradise, man. But okay, but post-Vatican II, there was all this thought going on in the Catholic Church about what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a Catholic. And in this moment, the Paulist Fathers, who are a group of Catholic priests who put out, they're Hollywood for Catholics. They put out a bunch of television and movie products that are meant to convey Catholic and Christian ideals to people. And Insight was their big hit, okay? But because of when it came at a time where there was a lot of internal questioning within the church. And there's actually a set of stories they do. And Bob Newhart did a lot with them, and he was often God, which is why I always think of, when I think of God, I think of Bob Newhart. That's like my image of God to me, is this very quiet guy who's very knowledgeable, but isn't there to make you uncomfortable. But there's this episode where they're in the Garden of Eden and they meet Gray, which is and it's basically this being who just questions everything. Says, is there a God? You say there's God and God takes care of you, but where is he now? I don't see him. I don't see God, and all this stuff. And it's this idea that, because you talk to Gray is in you forever now. You always have gray matter in your head. Little joke there. But it's this idea that because we don't know, we have to work through doubt and questioning. And that's okay. That's a good thing. That's part of what makes us human and makes us grow. And so every so often we should look at every freaking hero and say, well, was he this good? Was he that great? Now, it's great with fictional heroes because you can write them to do whatever you want. You can go back and rewrite Steve Rogers and say, well, no, actually, he was totally down with integration and people. And,
some people even do that with God.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you can.
And see all the atrocities attributed to his name and see, hey, wait a second. Where are we on the balance scales on that one?
Exactly, but that's, like I said, that's the great thing with fictional characters.
Right. If we're talking about not erecting statues, the greatest statue of all time, it just takes 2 sticks, right?
Yeah. Well, as it goes, if you want to make a lowercase t, feel free. If not everyone likes vampires, and vampires hate lowercase t's. Yeah. That's the one thing we know. We don't know why, but man, lowercase t's freak them out. Yeah. But the idea is that as you're going through everything, you are going to have people that you have to contextualize, but also not excuse. Because that's the thing. It's not like people didn't say.
But
it's not like people didn't say.
But we have to be careful that we don't err too far on the side of caution.
Yeah, but at the same time,
that can get real dangerous too.
So to give you an example, there were, I remember it was a Doonesbury bit about an article from I think it was the 1800s, because cigarettes didn't exist before 1800, about the dangers of tobacco smoke, and specifically cigarettes. That we think that cigarettes may even be the most deadly because they're taken in such a cyclical fashion. Because of how you smoke a cigarette, that these may cause the most death. And of course, their little cigarette spokesperson, says, so anytime people tell you that smoking is bad for you, just tell them that's old news. Because it is. We all knew for years that smoking was bad for you. People knew for years that owning human beings was maybe not the best thing. That, there's always been this urge to say, maybe human liberty and human freedom is a good thing, and we should focus on that. And of course, what happens is that then someone says, well, if you're going to let, people of other races just be free, what, are you going to let them marry your daughters? And at the end of the day, maybe you should say, well, you know what? If they're a decent enough person and they want to marry my daughter, and my daughter likes them a lot, maybe that's an okay thing. Maybe I shouldn't be that mad that my daughter wants to marry this person who is of a perspective that is very different from my own. And maybe that's a good thing. And maybe we should say, you know, when people made these statements, they're from their own ignorance. And we can acknowledge that, you know what, people were ignorant. And we're still ignorant, but we're getting
That's
better.
the thing that nobody
We're
wants
working
to admit.
better.
We're
Well,
still
exactly.
ignorant.
Well, you know, the problem is that and this is always the problem, is that you basically have the extremes dominating the conversation. You have people say, you know, there are people who say Thomas Jefferson did nothing wrong, which, you know, is objectively false. He did a lot of good, but he did do wrong. You know, he did do wrong.
Right.
And there are people who say,
But if you,
yeah,
sorry,
you know, but that's the thing. It's like if the people who say Thomas Jefferson did nothing wrong can just say the guy made some mistakes. Okay, let's be honest. But let's talk about what he did right, and let's not ignore what he did wrong. Let's not ignore that. Let's talk about that.
But to say that we can't celebrate him is going too far.
Well, I mean, I agree. You can celebrate anybody. You know, I personally like a celebration. I will celebrate anybody's birthday but Hitler's. Maybe Mussolini's.
Fair enough.
And probably Tojo's, because I don't like him much either. I think Tojo gets way off too easy in the whole conversation. Don't even get me started on the Emperor of Japan, because the people who said that the Emperor of Japan was actually the guy who was like, hey, Nazis, you want to do a party? You know, so
right.
There's a whole lot of messed up in history that I don't necessarily want to get into. And I can look at the glories of communism and socialism, but also acknowledge the horrors of Stalinism and and every other version of this that has come through, you know.
But I think the most important conversation is recognizing that not only can those things exist, but that they can exist in us too. So we should monitor ourselves just as much as we monitor other people.
We certainly should. And that's the thing, it's always internal. It always starts with us as internal. But, you know, and I guess the truth of it is, just bring it all back to Star Wars. Darth Vader never wanted to look at who he became. And at a certain point, when you get too far into the dark side, you do not want to realize how far you came. And so it is easy for Darth Vader to say, I killed Anakin Skywalker, because he doesn't want to admit that he ever was Anakin Skywalker, that he ever was someone with good and decency within him.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point to stop. I don't know about you. Do you have any final thoughts on tonight's episode?
No, I think that those conversations are what I enjoyed most about this episode.
Oh, you and me both. I mean, that's, you know, there is so much good in Star Trek. There's so much good. And you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. Like, there's probably awful things that, well, of course, there's, you know, every story has its bad story, you know. You know, but that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't matter that someone once told a bad story if they told a good story also. You know, you don't have to read the bad stories. You don't have to dwell on them, but you can look at, you know, what was a really smart thing they did was they did this story here. So, friends and neighbors, I hope you liked Obi-Wan. We liked Obi-Wan. If you have your own thoughts and your own fan theories, feel free to write them to us at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. We will read your stuff on the air if you say it's okay. If you have some thoughts that you want expressed, we are happy to bring them into the conversation. That's CapesandLunatics, all spelled out, all one word, @gmail.com. And of course, if you don't want to write things because that's hard, call us and just leave a voicemail at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And of course, go to Linktree, that's linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics, where you can look at all of our merch. Give us just free money. Join our Patreon, where you get to vote on the worst superhero films of all times. The amazing Superman 3 versus the, you know, other film, Superman 4, has gone to our Patreons again. So this is now up in the air and will be decided by those who gave us money. If you want to make sure that the correct film wins, come and give us money $5 a month, and you can do that and save the history of the worst superhero film of all time. And of course, Mozz, if they just want to talk to you, write to you, discuss things with you, how can they find you?
Or they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email way the way our mothers and fathers once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet things. I was going to tweet the Flash finale tonight, but I had more important things to do. At Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz. Yes. And just so you know, I'd always rather be doing this with you. All right, me hearties. Did we even do the full stream ahead start? We did not. But me hearties, this has been full stream ahead. And we hope you've enjoyed it, even as I forgot to do it. And we hope you join us again next week, as we're going to be reviewing a brand new show. Not yet decided, but there's some hot contenders. And we hope to see you again when we once again set sail. Full stream ahead. Arrgh.
All right.
All right. This has been an exciting